Hi there and welcome to another episode of Sit and Spin with me, your host, Joe Royland. Now, for today's subject matter, originally I wasn't even planning on covering this album. It came out back in December of last year, where I'm usually really busy and sometimes I even take the month off and doing a lot of shows because I just don't have time to do them. And there were also a lot of other albums that were coming out then that I was kind of a bit more excited about covering at the time than this record. And in all honesty, the nature of this album, which we'll get to in a minute, didn't thrill me all that much. I gave it a spin back then, thought it was pretty decent, but then just kind of set it aside, sort of forgot about it. However, for the last few weeks, I have been on a huge Rolling Stones listening and viewing kick. I've been kind of re-exploring all the band's catalog, from their beginnings in the mid-60s, through the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and beyond, all of it, all the way up until now. I've been into all of it. I've watched at least 5 different documentaries and 4 or 5 different concert videos. If there were a Rolling Stones book I had lying around, I probably would have read that too. It's kind of how I get when I get on one of these listening tears. I get a bit obsessive and immersing myself into pretty much kind of like rediscovering the artists and like what I loved about them, what I didn't. Just exhausting myself of their catalog. Now, the plus side of that is that I quite enjoy it when it's going on, but the downside is that kind of like a good book, it's pretty much all I want to do in my free time is just like that thing that I'm focused on, and that's great, but to the detriment of that, I'm kind of like not listening to the other new things that I should be listening to, the other artists I need to be covering with my show. So that's a lot of lead-in to get to the fact that I guess this was just this album's way of telling me that it didn't want to be ignored or forgotten, and so here we find ourselves talking about it now, and that would be the new release from the Rolling Stones, Blue and Lonesome. Now, it is the iconic British group's 23rd UK and 25th US studio album, and it's their first to feature entirely cover songs of old blues tunes. Again, so there is like the subject matter. That may not be like exciting to you, or it might be, but it basically brings the band back to their roots, where they started out pretty much covering blues songs and early rock and roll and R&B stuff. And in fact, the group was named after a song from a famous blues artist. Basically, during an interview with Jazz News, the original guitarist and founding member Brian Jones, late Brian Jones I should say, was asked about the fledgling band and says, so what's the name of this new band you have called? And not having a name for the group yet, he happened to see a Muddy Waters album lying on the floor, and he picked it up and noticed that one of the tracks on the back was called Rolling Stone, and there you have it, the band was named. Now, Blue and Lonesome was recorded pretty much live in the studio in the course of just 3 days with producer Don Was. There's like no overdubs, and as I said, it's all covers of classic blues artists, mainly a lot of Chicago blues artists. There's tracks from folks like Little Walter, the title track, Hate to See You Go, Just Your Fool, Howlin' Wolf's Commit a Crime, Willie Dixon, Just Like I Treat You, Johnny Taylor, everybody knows about My Good Thing, Otis Rush, I Can't Quit You Baby, Led Zeppelin covered that as well on their first album, Magic Sam, All Your Love, Jimmy Reed, Little Rain, and Lightning Slim, Hoodoo Blues, folks like that, all great tunes like that. It's also the first Stones album not to feature a Keith Richards vocal on lead vocal since 1974 is its only rock and roll, and that's probably why Keith Richards also released his own solo album, Cross-Eyed Heart, last year, which I believe my good friend Scott over at Righteous Vinyl might even be covering this weekend, because come to find out, we were talking about it last week, we didn't even know it, independently of each other, we've both been on these big Rolling Stone listening kicks, so look for that. You might have that out this weekend, or at least soon. The album also features a guest appearance by Eric Clapton, who happened to be recording in the next studio over from what the Stones were. So, being old friends, they dragged him in. He plays slide guitar on Everybody Knows About My Good Thing and lead guitar on I Can't Quit You Baby, which is, both of those are also two of my favorite tracks on the album. And for the album's cover, the Stones kind of updated their iconic Lips logo, changed it from red to blue to go along with the album's title, but re-listening to this album and revisiting it, it's a pretty great little record. Like I said earlier, old blues covers and album old blues covers might not be your thing, and admittedly necessarily wasn't mine at first either. When I listened to it, I'm like, yeah, this is good, but I don't know how much I'll listen to it. But being on this kick, I've kind of been listening to it a lot more and reappreciating it more and finding I like it a lot more than I initially thought. You may find yourself in the same boat. You know, if you're a Stones fan at all, if you like great blues stuff and good blues covers, check out the Stones' Blue and Lonesome. It's out now. It's been out since December, the latest record of them. And that's our show this week. Next week, we'll be getting back to some more new music from recent releases and new artists. We will catch you next time on Sit and Spin. See you then.